Welcome into the DRF Sportsbook betting breakdown. It is NFL draft season. We're less than 2 weeks away from the Carolina Panthers officially being on the clock in the NFL draft. I mean, I guess they've been kind of on the clock since they traded for that number one overall pick a few weeks ago. But with every hour we're getting closer to the NFL draft, it seems like more and more markets are coming available over on DRF Sportsbook. So to make sense of it all, we have Jeff Edelstein on from Sports Handle, a DFS expert, an NFL draft bettor, and he's here to help us make sense of a little bit. Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. It is a tough draft to get a handle on this year. That is I think that's the overreaching thought that I have today. So be prepared for a lot of I don't know when you ask me questions here, because it's tough.
I love that start, because I guess this is how you can kind of figure out how someone's feeling for this NFL draft. Are you a Bryce Young guy, or are you a CJ Stroud guy?
Well, I've been betting. I love betting the NFL draft, and I'm in New Jersey. We have Oscar betting as well. I love betting these information markets because I don't feel as if the books have a lead on me, basically.
Yeah.
Right. It's so much is based on word of mouth and like keeping your ear, to Twitter more or less,
Pretty
and
much, yeah.
seeing what's moving. And so what I like to do in these markets, and it's a little late now for the NFL draft this year, but just I like betting early and often, right? With plus money,
Yeah.
So I don't care who goes first right now. I have both Stroud and Young. I've bet them both at plus money.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to turn a little bit of a profit on that. I mean, right now, Bryce Young has become the heavy favorite.
Yeah.
I've seen him up to like minus 450 today, even at some shops. But I don't think, this isn't a normal minus 450, right? This isn't like, well, the Braves are clearly, an 80% chance to, what I'm saying? This is just based, I don't think the Panthers have made up their mind yet. So, I mean, I guess, so if I gun to my head, yeah, I guess Young is the pick. But if I had to bet, I'm going to bet Stroud. I'm going to take the plus money here and see what happens.
Yeah, go with the value there. And I mean, CJ Stroud was minus money, what, like 2 weeks ago? And
Yeah. I
all of
mean,
a sudden
it flipped. It flipped when Adam Schefter came out, and Schefter obviously can move a market, and he said that it's a done deal. They're taking Young. But if you remember last year in the NBA draft,
that was a fun one.
that was crazy. We had a Woj bomb the morning of saying Jabari Smith was going number one. He went up to minus 10,000 the morning of the draft. 5 minutes before the draft goes off, Woj comes back on and says, now I'm here. It's Banchero. Banchero in the last 2 minutes went from plus like 250 to minus 5,000. And of course he went number one. So I don't know. I'm not saying I know any more that I know more than I'm Schefter. I clearly do not. But there's what benefit do the Panthers have in like leaking that they're taking Young? It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I remember there was a video that came out too a few weeks ago, like right after they traded for the pick. They went to Stroud's pro day, and you could see McCown, their quarterback coach, mouth like, or say something along the lines of like, when you're living in Charlotte, and then the betting lines immediately after that comes
Right.
out, it just plummets. And it's also interesting, but you kind of touched on a little bit that it's early and often is your strategy betting the NFL draft. Do you have any other betting strategies as we get closer to the NFL draft, or do you tend to stay away from it more as we get closer to the actual day?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I probably it's tough. It really depends, I guess, is the answer, because like I when I get my weekly report from my phone telling me how much time I spent on
Yeah.
Twitter, it's this time of year where I really start questioning some of my life decisions. If you're dedicated to betting on the draft, and I wake up when I roll out of bed in the morning, okay, at this time of year, this is no joke. And if I happen to wake up at 3 a.m. because I got to use the bath, it doesn't matter. It doesn't. At the moment my eyes open for the day, even if it's just for a minute, I will go to Twitter. I will type in mock draft. Right. I will see. Did Lance Zierlein, drop one? Did
Yeah.
Jeremiah drop one? Because these mock drafts, now as we're getting closer to the draft day, these final quote unquote final mock drafts from the experts, they will move markets, and some books, you got to shop around, right? But
Yeah.
so some are a little slower on the uptake than others, and so if I see a mock that has a surprise in it, I will usually I'll take the bait and I'll bet. I have a whole sheet of bets that I've already made this year. Every single one of them is, well into the, over plus 200 or 300. I'm not saying this is the right way to do it. I'm saying
Yeah.
it's the way I do it.
Yeah.
You know,
Who on that sheet, do you have a favorite? You're
let me
kind of
see.
you're the one you've circled and you're like, I absolutely adore this bet. And for me, if you say Will Anderson number 5 to the Seahawks, I completely agree with you. And as a fan of the Seahawks, that is where everything is trying to make me go right now.
Well, I don't have that one. I mean, my favorite one that's not going to happen. I got some plus 5,000 on Richardson going number one, which
I
I
like
think.
it though.
Well, I mean, exactly. I think there's a chance, but
Yeah.
I mean, I think of the bets that I made that I like the most that actually have a chance of cashing. Uh, am I allowed to mention other sports books? Is
Yeah,
that
of
legal
course.
there?
Please
Yeah.
do.
All right. So DraftKings has been pretty good, I think, with this year. And 3-4 years ago, all the books came out early and often with numbers. They've slowed down a little bit. DraftKings has done a little bit of a better job than some of the others this year in releasing early, and they released total quarterbacks taken in the first round. They had it at 4.5, and it was like, I forget what I got it at, but I think it was like plus 450, which it's down now to about plus 100. We know four are going. We know Stroud, Young, Richardson, and Levy's. We know that they're going. The question is Hooker. Is Hooker going to go in the first round?
Yeah.
I mean, again, I don't think he is necessarily, but I'm not going to pass up what I thought was value. And I was
Yeah.
proven right, as the odds have dropped tremendously since then. I got Bijan Robinson, I got him going to practically every team at plus money. I'm really pulling for the Patriots or the Falcons to jump in there. But yeah, it's just real, the first cornerback market,
Yeah.
Witherspoon and Gonzalez. Gonzalez was a heavy favorite, but every mock draft that I saw, well, not everyone, but I'm saying half the mock drafts that I saw had Witherspoon
Mhm.
going first. So I said, you know what? I'm going to bet some Witherspoon here. Now it's flipped. Gonzalez is
Yeah.
first. I guarantee you, I haven't yet. I'm going to put some money on Gonzalez. I'll take a small profit. I think that's kind of like part of like what my big method is I'm trying to eke out small profits everywhere and hope, like I did with the Oscars, that I was early enough on something where I got everything everywhere all at once at plus 1,400, to carry the day. So it's just I love it. It's just such a different way to bet on sports because this isn't. I don't need to. Do I think the Chiefs are better than the Bengals? Yeah, maybe, but I have no idea.
Yeah.
But at least this is just pure like ear to the ground, seeing
Yeah.
seeing what's going on out there and
It's
having
fun.
some fun
It's
with it.
you're getting into it. You can convince yourself every single which way of how
Absolutely.
things can happen. I do want to ask you a question about a tweet of yours that I read that I want to get the kind of break it down here on the DRF Sportsbook betting breakdown. You said, I think NFL front offices are using this sports betting markets to spread misinformation. I think this because if I were a GM, that's what I would do. How would you do that? Because I agree. If I'm them, I'm leaking stuff and using
Yeah.
that to my advantage. But I want to get your thought process behind this.
All right. Full disclosure, I was about 2 or 3 gin and tonics in when this thought occurred to me.
That's when they all come to you. I
Yeah,
prefer drinks
probably.
the old fashioned where you're
Right.
too into those and you're like, I could solve if I ever had the number one overall pick, I would just simply trade it away every single time.
Yeah,
But
right. No, the thought crossed my mind that with I mean, sports betting's been around forever, but it just feels like if I were a GM, right, and especially if I had the first pick, I would want to spread as much disinformation as I could
yeah,
in hopes that somebody comes knocking and makes me an offer that I can't refuse. There clearly this year there's not like the slam dunk number one. There's no Victor Wembanyama, in this year's NFL draft, right? So I don't know. I would put out as much disinformation as I can. There's been rumors out there that the Texans don't like Stroud, that they only want Young, right? So if I'm the Panthers, I'm going to put out as much information as I
yeah,
can saying that I'm taking Young and hope I get the Texans to bite. Maybe
yeah,
I want, and so are they using the sport? I don't think they're using the sports books as much as, you know, but if you're the Texans GM and you say, I wonder what the Panthers are going to do, maybe you don't take a peek at the odds to see what the market thinks. I
Yeah.
mean, it just does make sense to me. Uh, yeah, it was definitely a 2 or 3 gin and tonic thought though. But like there, it's just another avenue to spread misinformation to try to get an edge on your opponent, right? So
Yeah.
that's really what it comes down to.
Do you have any bets? I'm looking at some of the odds we have over at DRF Sportsbook, and one of them's very interesting. First tight end drafted. This one seems like it's shifted a lot. It's been, Michael Mayer was up there. It's now Dalton Kincaid, Darnell Washington. It just seems like it's flipping every single day. Have you placed a bet on that market that seems to be one of the most interesting ones?
I haven't, and I wish I did, right? Because I thought it was Meyer was a lock
Yeah.
2 months ago, and he was minus money, so I didn't bother with it. But yeah, that's exactly the kind of market that like I look at. I'm like, yeah, I wish I bet this because I would have bet Kincaid 2 months ago, and then I'd bet Meyer today, and I'd
Hmm.
lock in a tiny little profit and move on my way. Uh, and again, I've seen mocks as recently as today that have Meyer ahead of Kincaid, so I
Yeah.
think there is probably value there. And Kincaid, there's some minor concerns about like a back injury that
Yeah.
might keep him out of OTA. So who knows? But yeah, that's exactly the type of market. I mean, it's hard at this point if you're betting this stuff early and often to find a market that hasn't flipped.
Yeah.
You know,
Because I mean, you look at the edge rushers. Will Anderson was the clear cut favorite. Jalen Carter made a late push. Now Jalen Carter, I think more so than on the field issues, was off the field issues.
right?
Now you see Tyree Wilson. Miles Murphy was up there with Will Anderson when probably just a few weeks ago. He's dropped where Tyree Wilson's come up, and the whole edge class just seems like that is another completely volatile one that will flip probably 3 more times over the
It,
next 10 days.
it very well may. And just to be clear, just because I'm betting these early and often doesn't mean that I'm winning everything. Like as I'm looking through my notes here, I've brought Broderick Jones as the first offensive lineman taken, and that's not going to happen. You know,
Yeah, I don't even know who the offensive linemen are in
It
this
ain't
draft.
Broderick Jones, I'll tell you that much. He's not going to be the first one off the board. So, I don't want to make it sound like I'm some like, savant over here, but I do like it. I do enjoy it. That much is clear.
And this draft has a lot of guys that will be pivotable. Well, I can't say that word, pivotal.
They'll be very
In
important.
Yeah, very important in next year's daily fantasy stuff. And I know you're big into DFS. Are there any of these guys you have circled for next year that you can't wait to kind of use? Is it Bijan Robinson? Is it
Well,
maybe
yeah,
some Denzel
Robinson.
Mims?
Robinson clearly. But he's if he falls into the right bucket, the
Yeah,
right team, it
Patriots,
really.
Falcons.
Yeah, well, maybe, I mean, I'd love to see him land on the Eagles, honestly. I think he really might be unlocked. I'd hate to see him go to the Patriots because I feel like the Patriots, I mean, I feel like the game has passed Bill Belichick by a little bit. I'm
Yeah.
ducking, I don't, but I don't know. The Falcons, yeah, I guess they turn, what's his Arthur Smith, turned Derrick Henry into Derrick Henry, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, he's definitely one of them. It's interesting, the receivers this year, uh everything that I read, it's just not, these guys are not the same caliber that we saw last year. But again, I think so much of this depends on where these players land.
Yeah.
Because while talent wins the day, I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of talented NFL players who due to the teams they landed on never reached their potential. So we just have to kind of wait and see, hold our breath. Hopefully everyone lands where they're most explosive. But yeah, Robinson, from everything you read, he is a 3-down superstar.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm hoping he lands somewhere where he will be useful, where I can overpay for him in the draft, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And if you had to take kind of your betting hat off and put on your oracle hat and trying to predict the top five, you kind of have to mock it out yourself. How do you see the top five going? Do you see 4 quarterbacks going 1, 2, 3, 4, or do you see some wild card happening in there in the top five?
Yeah, I mean, I I think it's all right. Well, let's see what I'll go. Stroud is number one. I
Okay.
think it's misdirection, which means Young goes two. I think at that point the market for the Cardinals to trade is going to be weakened. So I think the Cardinals keep it and take Will Anderson.
I hate to hear that.
I think the Colts will go. I think they'll go Levy's at 4, and then who is even picking 5? I can't even gotten that far. Yeah, the Seahawks, right? I mean, that's an interesting spot. Then if it goes in that direction, they might move, they might trade, right?
Yeah.
At that point, they might take a flyer on Richardson there because you have Geno locked down, but I don't know. Then the Richardson thing is its own thing, right? Again, I'm not a scout. I don't have my hands. I'm not a tape guy, but clearly this guy has the most upside.
Yeah.
Of anybody in the draft, and so you'd like to see him almost land on a team that doesn't need him, that where he's not the savior,
100%.
where you can work with him for a year or 2 or 3, and Geno, what's Geno? He's
33, 34.
Oh, yeah.
He's old.
He's surprisingly old, right? Because I can.
We haven't heard his name for 10 years.
I know, right? But so like that would give the Seahawks, some time to work. But it's the Seahawks probably watching and waiting to see what happens. I think a lot depends on who the Panthers take. I think if the Panthers take Young, then I think things are going to happen quickly. I think there's going to be a lot of movement, a lot of like potential trades. If they take Stroud, I think things are going to fall kind of in line.
Yeah. And last question before we get up out of here. Something you wish more people knew about betting on the NFL draft that they otherwise right now don't necessarily know?
Yeah, I think it's what I said in the beginning is that like unless you're a degenerate type like myself who is like just in love with this stuff and like looking at it every day. I mean, I've been betting the NFL draft this year since I mean, God, I can't even tell you that, Will Levy's going number 1. Like I was placing that bet like back in like, November. I don't even know when the market's open, but the market's open early. And I think that there is a lot of value in jumping on plus money and waiting to see how it shakes out, because every year it seems to me, whether it's the NFL draft or the Oscar market or any other information market, the it's not like a ball game where the line might move, from minus 280 to minus 240. This is a market where lines move from minus 280 to plus 280 to minus 280 to plus 280. It's not incremental movements; it's wild swings. And if you can stay on top of it, you can put yourself in a position where you're on the on the right side of it doesn't matter who what the pick is or who the winner is, right? Where you'll have a little bit of both.
And it feels like the sports books don't have as much of an edge where they do in games, where it seems like all of a sudden you see the line move from like whenever a quarterback gets injured and you see it just completely plummet down, something's happening, but the injury news isn't out yet. Where this, it feels like the sports books are reacting in real time to when Schefter tweets. And so it kind of gives you an advantage to jump in there and maybe find that plus money that will have a wild swing right before that wild swing occurs.
Yeah. I mean, the sports books are battling the same, wins that we're battling here. There's no algorithm that's going to tell them, who's going to go number 1. They're depending on knowledge, right? Yeah. And then put your ear to the ground and listen to what Twitter's got to say, and you'll have the same knowledge that the books have.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time, Jeff. If you want to kind of plug away where people can find you and keep up to date with all of your NFL draft betting musings and everything going on, feel free.
Yeah, well, you can find me at Sports Handle and US Bets, where I do most of my writing. Those are part of the Better Collective family, and on Twitter at Jeff Edelstein.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff.
You got it. Thank you.